welcome back to Life According to Lashai. Today I'm here with a really, really special guest, someone that I've admired for a long time and I've learned so much from. His name is Bob Doyle. You may know him from the Secret movie, which he played a huge part in really beginning that conversation around the law of attraction and how to sort of manifest the life you desire and just taking that first step on the journey. And he's been in a new movie called How Thoughts Become Things. Bob, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself? Because obviously I haven't been able to encapsulate all your amazing achievements and everything you do.
Sure. Excuse me. I'm so sorry to start that with the clearing of the throat. So I think what I want people to know in essence about me is that it was never my career goal to get into personal development and help people. I always wanted to be a broadcaster, get on the radio, use my voice, be funny, ha. That's what to entertain. That was my goal. And so I started my career in that. And then I got a little bit disillusioned by the fact that because of the corporate structure, I couldn't really do everything I wanted to do. So it was like my childhood dream was like, I can't do what I wanted. So I jumped around from career to career, and my disillusionment with being able to find anything that I like to do is what led me down the path that ultimately led me to information about the law of attraction and creating your reality. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the science of how our realities are constructed, sort of on a quantum level, but also just how our thoughts actually do have an energetic impact on what happens to us. And in my case, it was like I realized that I had a lot of limiting beliefs around money and success. So even though I was talking a big game about what I was going to do with my business and career, inside I had a lot of stuff about money. So when I saw all of that and had my aha moment about that, then I could get more intentional about doing the subconscious work. So once I had my ahas and I got inspired to teach it and created my first online program, which was out there for a few years. And then that's how I got found by the producers of The Secret to be in that movie. But my whole message really, even though people consider that it's about teaching the law of attraction, yes, but the reason I'm doing that and what I really want people to get out of that is that what I would like to see is everybody really fully expressing themselves creatively, like being who they really want to be in the world, because that was my struggle. That was what I was having such a hard time with and fueled my unhappiness and dissatisfaction is I wanted to express myself. And I thought I was going to do it in radio, and then I didn't. So that's really what I'm trying to help people do. And the law of attraction is definitely a part of it.
Wow. Well, thanks obviously for sharing that. But it's also very interesting to hear how you obviously wanted to be in radio and use your voice for your work. But in a sense, that initial plan has changed, but you're still using those skill sets. Obviously,
yes. Yeah. It actually works great. All the little things I did along the way that I considered failures, I'm using pieces of them. They've all come into my story and how I do what I do, and I couldn't do what I do if I hadn't done those. My story wouldn't be the same, the way I connect, everything. I needed all of those experiences.
Yes. So obviously in this amazing movie, How Thoughts Become Things, you touched on some of the ideas around how we're always unconsciously learning and unconsciously being programmed. And to some, obviously you elaborated on that in the movie, but to some, just that initial statement can be a bit daunting because if it's unconscious, how can I change that? How can I control it? So what are some tips that you have for reprogramming yourself in that essence?
Yeah, it can sound daunting, but it's actually just freaking great to learn how it all worked, that our brain is just, especially as we're young, it's just ready to receive. And through what it receives, it will shape how you view reality, and a lot of that is imprinted by the parents and basically the environment, And so that's how children and human beings in general are formed with those initial sets of beliefs. But then, it's all unconscious. We're not, as children, evaluating, does this make sense to me? Does this serve me? Does this make me feel good? Am I disempowered? No 2-year-old is going to say that, right?
Yeah.
So we just let it all in and let it all in and let it all in. And the reason that it works the way it does is that our brains they have this neuroplasticity. They have the ability to change with consistent and persistent information. It says, okay, well, this is what's real, and that builds wiring around it. So that's how we get wired with our beliefs. And we literally see the world through a different lens than any other person because their wiring is slightly different. And that's why when people can't agree on something and you're wondering, why can't you even see my point of view? They can't. Their wiring is not going to allow it, and it would take some time for them to rewire to match that. But anyway, the good news is that if you're conscious, now you know. Oh, that's how it works. So now I can consciously feed in new information. What do I want to feel? Who do I want to be? How do I want to react in these situations? And get into the feeling of those things. And then you can start to build new neural pathways. And as you build those and ignore the other ones wither away, and you literally become a new person.
Yes, well, and some of the things that you touched on there, obviously in very early years of our life, it's very much inputting, learning, watching, taking in from what's around us. But then that's why I find early teen years to mid-teen years so interesting, because you go from being in a point in your life where it's just learning, but then you get to a point where it's sort of pick and choose, and then you might want to start copying this. So my next sort of point I'd like to touch on and a question for you is, what are some tips that you would have for teens and young people who are coming to a point in their life where they're wanting to create their own identity, but they sort of don't want to go too far from the herd? Like, what are some good ways to sort of appreciate and tap into your uniqueness?
So I have such a passion for this topic because I have three children. I have three children, and the two oldest are now 31 and 28, and then I've got a 20-year-old. I may be off on the math, but that's the general range. Point is, I watched them suffer through middle school and those teenage years, and since then, and with the bullying and social and the mean girls and the whole thing, just the drama that is teenage years. And I do put some of the blame on just the system, the structure of the system, where kids are not able to cultivate their, from when they're little. They can play and imagine whatever they want. It's encouraged. They get into school and now they're being disruptive. Yeah. Right. And you stop that. And they don't know what to do with that. So the wiring starts. It's not okay to be me. It's not okay to express. It's not okay. I'm not okay. Right. And that's the wiring, because the system says, you've got to be in line with everybody else. You got to be, that's it, with a little bit of expression here and there. But that's, generally speaking. So if that, anybody on the planet who is suppressed from expressing themselves, which is what's happening there, is going to develop a rebellious spirit. There's going to be upset. There's going to be depression. There's going to be anger and resentment because you can't, I got this life. I'm here to live it. And you're not letting me. Yeah. So I believe that's one of the big reasons that teenagers are this way. And I'm not saying you just let them run amok. The wiring has to start earlier. The encouragement has to start earlier so that they develop into teenagers with already the mindset of like, hey, I'm going to use this evolved, mature mindset, in a positive way. And because I'm being nurtured by my friends and family and my, whatever, to do this. Like, I get the sense that all of you and your siblings have that environment, but it is, and I know, it's rare.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying, because similarly to your kids in what we call primary school here, I went through really horrid bullying experiences at a very young age, probably at a point in my life where I couldn't properly comprehend the concept of bullying. So being told, oh, you can't do this, or X, Y, and Z, when you've been taught to dream and that anything's possible, and then you're being shoved into a box. So no, what you're saying is completely on point. And especially what I think is so amazing nowadays for kids is that they have such easy access to the internet, where they have more opportunity to choose what they're inputting into themselves, where they can go watch a video that you've created giving some teachings, compared to a few years back when you may have had to independently go to an internet cafe, pay to use the internet there. So I think just as times are changing, there's so many more opportunities for kids, but it's still not easy.
Yeah. So, because it's a balance. Because they have access to the internet, it means they have access to it all. Yes. Right. And so they have to be laser focused on their goal, their vision, their task to not go off, especially teenagers. I know this exact thing happened with my son. We put him on online schooling. You can't, it's very difficult. But there is so much information to be learned that people are you save tens of thousands of dollars. You can educate yourself on a task that people have traditionally gone to higher education institutions for and learning a bunch of stuff they don't need just to learn this skill set. And so that is another whole thing. So I love the fact that they do have access to really becoming and learning whatever they want to, if not for free, for much less of an investment than traditional learning institute, and such a compressed period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, a kid now, whereas in my day, an 18-year-old was just getting started learning maybe kind of what they wanted to do. Now a kid can know at 13 they want to be a graphic artist, they want to do stuff for games, and they can learn now how to do it. By the time they're 16 years old, they could have a portfolio and a freaking job doing something they love, because they took all that time, invested in something that they learned that they loved, instead of the stuff that they're forced to learn at school, which isn't serving them and has nothing to do with their passion.
Yeah, so obviously we do live in very interesting times where there are two very sort of paramount and very obvious realities that people are experiencing, where they can go and learn anything they want to online just at a touch of a button on their smartphone, but there may be also the family around them. Maybe it's a thing that everyone has to go to college and you can't do X, Y, and Z. So it is quite an interesting dynamic to
but we're in that, we got to be in the transitional generations of that. I mean, there's still people who are like, you got to go to college, you got to finish it through, like in my generation. But I'm not that way. And I think that, my kids probably won't necessarily be. I think that'll be, because it'll become obvious. It's like, look, I've learned everything. I'm 16. I can do this. Why would I get a loan for $125,000 that I'm be paying back to? Like it's just, in so many cases, it isn't necessary, especially today.
Yes.
And that, going back around to the well-being of a child, depression and the bullying and all of this stuff stems from this dissatisfaction that we have, that the kids are, because they can't express themselves. We're asking them to learn in a way that we were taught. Their brains are totally different now. It's literally wired and process information completely differently. And we wonder why they're struggling, or they're bored, or they're ADD, or whatever. It's because we're trying to put our way of learning into their brains that process so much differently. And until we wake up, and it's happening. But teach kids in the way they can easily learn. Kids who play video games, they love to gamify things, and they know my son organizes data in his head in a way that I could never, don't even have any interest in learning how to do, because of those games with inventory and crafting and stuff like that. So he's going to process it. If we try to teach him something in the old way with these, it's so slow. He'd be, and that's what happened. It's like, I am bored. So that's got to evolve.
It is very interesting. Obviously, I'm 20 myself now, and I've sort of grown up in a very interesting time where I've had a lot of the old stuff, but the new ways have come in, and it's really interesting to observe, because even my youngest brother, who's 6, probably back when he was like 3 or 4, he would know how to work the TV and how to use the iPad and find his favorite programs. But then you try to get him to like read a book or something, and like he'd be stuck. So it's helping them to learn in a way that is easy for them to process, in a way that understands. Like you said, times have changed.
Instead of making them wrong for how that's what's happening. It's like they're labeling the kids as ADD that they've got, and now they have a label, and that's in their head. Like, oh my God, I'm broken. No, we are broken. The system is broke. We do not know how to serve you. We have built this infrastructure. We've put this technology in your hand. We have wired you, and we do not know what to do with it. So we're going to make you wrong for how we've programmed you. That is what is happening.
And exactly that. And I find that one thing nowadays that really just bugs me sometimes is that instead of finding ways to move forward, in some respects there are organizations doing amazing things, but instead of solving something or adapting to a way in the style of learning that is more applicable for some people, we just give it a label. Like you said, okay, you have ADD. Just because you learn in a different way, there's something wrong with you. So,
and we don't know how to handle it. So I know we've really gone off the rails on education, but
yes,
but it matters, because that absolutely influences a way that a child thinks, not just in the world but about themselves. And so if they think that they're broken or they don't fit in or something like that, it's going to be harder for them to construct a vision for themselves where they're empowered, where they deserve all of this, where they do fit in, and where things go well for them, because they don't know how to think. So see, I tied it all together.
Yes, and like exactly what we've been covering. That's why as a family, we thought it was so important to watch the movie collectively and sort of just connecting it back. Why did you think it was so important that you were obviously a part of the initial Secret movie that sort of started the conversation, opened the door, but to come back and to continue that conversation with how thoughts become things?
Well, two things. One, it was just kind of cool to be, because there were so many people from The Secret who were reunited in this film. So that's kind of cool, right? So that's a cool reason to be part of it. But more importantly, it was the timing is just great, not just for the world, because of course we need to, when we're in this weird state where people are in their homes and thoughts are going everywhere, knowing how to wrangle those thoughts and understand, hey, look, now's the time to get these things structured and focused and not go all over the place. So the timing is good along those areas. It also happens to coincide with just where I have naturally progressed in my teaching of this and coaching of this has been in the rewiring conversation more than the energy stuff. So it was just good timing all the way around.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And it was amazing, obviously, to be on the receiving end of that and just hearing you expand on some ideas that you may have touched on in The Secret initially. And so next, I would love for you to share why the idea that failure is feedback rather than just, okay, you've got it wrong, that's all. What does that sort of create in terms of programming and Yeah, well, first of all, if you can look at it from a logical point of view, nothing on the planet that you use every day would exist and be a part of your life if the first time it didn't work, it was a failure. It's like you have to break, we make it logical to quit after one failure. We make it logical, but there's obviously no logic, not even a little bit of logic, not a speck. And no one in the world who does anything has that opinion. Nothing got done right none of it. It's a series of quote unquote failures. I'm going to try this thing, see if it works. Oh, it didn't work. What do I need to change? Okay, nope, didn't work. Got it. Now I can do the next thing. If you don't have those feedbacks, you won't be able to get to the next step. And so, and just like we talked about walking, a kid falls and falls and falls and he doesn't quit after, well, I guess I'm not walking. I fell. I know I'm a month, but it's obviously the universe doesn't want me to walk. So, I mean, but that is how we behave as adults. We learn about the law of attraction and we visualize, and then we take an action and we get feedback that we didn't want. And we go, well, I guess the universe doesn't want it for us. What? It just gave you feedback. Now take action. This is how you're going to get there. But that's just not that's not what the personal development audience wants. They want the 1, 2, 3 step. Oh, it's this instant thing. Okay, well, no. But you also don't have to suffer over it, and it also doesn't have to take years and years and years. But you do need to at least get a handle on how you're interpreting every moment and how you can do it better. That's more in alignment with someone you want to be. Oh, wow. Thanks for sharing that. And the next thing that I'd like to touch upon just before we sort of draw this to a close is what sort of inspired you and triggered you to want to share these learnings that you had? Because it's one thing doing it yourself, that's already a big deal, but what sort of gave you the courage to say, there are more people that need to hear this?
So, yeah, I didn't think of it as courage. That's the funny. I've just always been like, hey, I've got this thing I'm challenged with. As I learn about it, I'm going to tell you because I got this internet and I can. And before I was teaching any of this, my sort of journey was in fitness. I'd never exercised in my life and blah, blah, blah. And I was having health issues and I started exercising and took fitness seriously and then got kind of obsessed with it for a couple of years. And I did a website on it and physique transformation and all of that. So I learned how to interview and I learned how to do a lot of the things that I then brought into the next step of my career. I started naturally sharing it through the community, right? But then I learned about, this technology where I can share more, and it just triggered my broadcasting, right? All my old broadcasting, I can do kind of a show on this. So that made the sharing of it fun and creative. And so when I had the law of attraction aha moments, it was just the exact same thing. It was like, okay, I've been searching for these answers for freaking ever. I know other people have too. I'm just going to put together what I know and I'm going to put it out there because I can, and I like doing it.
Thank you so, so much for having this conversation with me. We've touched on a range of things, but I think they're all very apparent in society right now. And I feel like the listeners and viewers are going to be learning so much from watching this. So just before you go, is there any sort of contact details you'd like to leave, a website, an easy way for people to learn more about you?
Yeah, I'm super easy to find. If you just do Bob Doyle Secret in Google, you're going to find me all over the place. Easy to find on Facebook. I have sort of a hub website, meetbobdoyle.com, where you can see just about everything I'm up to. So that's probably the best place to go.
Thank you. Once again, thank you so much for your time. And thank you to everyone listening and watching this. It really does mean a lot. And we really hope that we did impart some wisdom on you or trigger some thoughts, and so that you're prepared to take that next step on your journey wherever you are. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode, and that's all for now. Bye.